So as I mentioned, I have 5 boys. My oldest son is running around here somewhere. I broke my hand, y'all, right before I came on this trip. So look at her. And it's my dominant hand, so it's a pain. My son came and he's literally been my right hand with me while I'm here, and I'm so grateful for that. My husband and I live in Florida now, but I was born and raised in South Carolina. So if you hear a Southern accent, it is from the mountains of South Carolina. And we are in ministry right now in Florida. My husband and I help to lead a church in Okeechobee, Florida. If you've ever heard of Lake Okeechobee, that has some of the best bass fishing in the world. She's nodding her head. Yes. Okay. We're right there in the middle of Florida. Don't think like Disney World and beaches. Think like, country, cowboy hats, right there. That's what we got right in the middle of Florida. It's great. But how we ended up there is very, very interesting, and it's certainly not anything that I would have expected for my life. God has taken me places I never, ever, ever would imagine. In the mountains of South Carolina, where I was born and raised, my grandfather was pastor of a little tiny independent Conservative Holiness Movement church. And that church got started because he and his brother got mad at each other about something. They disagreed. And so my grandfather went over and started his own thing. And so I was raised in that. And there were a lot of rules, a lot of rules, especially for the ladies. And I think you all were probably familiar with that. And it was presented to you as you have to do these things to make it to heaven. As in, if you put on a wedding band, that is a sin. If you do that, you're going to go to hell. Oh, look at you, put your flashy band. Watch it out, brother. Watch out. That's a slippery slope right there. And so I grew up in this church, and I was hearing all of this stuff on Sunday. And of course, if you looked at us, we looked like a cute little conservative family, and we looked really good, right? You see us in Walmart. You see us, it's kind of like the Ducker situation. We all looked at them on the television show, and we thought, oh, that just looks so good. They're such a good little family. And there's all these things going on underneath the surface, and that was my life. I read an illustration one time about drowning, of all things, but it's something that happens a lot in Florida. I was reading an article about it, and in the article it stated that we think that we know what drowning looks like. Like we have this picture in our mind from movies and TV shows and all this stuff where people just, float, going crazy with their hands, and they're screaming and they're yelling, and there's all this big, hullabaloo, and people go to run to their rescue because you see it, right? That's not what drowning is like. Drowning is actually very, very silent. Most of the time, you don't even know that it's happening. People aren't yelling. They're trying to get their next breath. They don't have their hands up here. They have their hands down here under the water, trying their very best to beat their way back to the surface. And in my mind, that was my life and the life of so many people sitting here. We were drowning. Literally drowning. And everybody around us when we walked through the store was, oh, look at that cute little Christian family. Look at them. They're so spiritual. They're so this. They're so that. It wasn't that way at all. I was drowning, literally drowning. In the middle of all of the rules and everything that we had, we also had a lot of secrets. My family had a lot of secrets. And I was in this weird dichotomy of having the people who told me at church on Sunday that I couldn't wear open-toed shoes, that I couldn't show you my clavicle, that I couldn't wear short sleeves, that I had to wear pantyhose all the time. The dichotomy of that, and then what was happening to me behind the scenes. Those very people doing not good things. I got married young, because that's what you do in those circles. Women get married and they have babies. And I did my part on that, y'all. 5 kids, I did my part. But I got married at 17 years old. 6 days after I turned 17, I walked down the aisle. And I loved my husband as much as a poor little broken girl could love somebody, which is to say not very much at all. He was my escape route. He was my way out. That just has bright future written all over it right there, doesn't it? We got married. I was hopeful that when we were on our own, that somehow we would figure out a way to manage everything about our life and manage all the things that I didn't understand and I just thought if I was in a different situation, everything just changed. But the issue is wherever you go, there you are. And so there I was now in a relationship with my husband with all these secrets that I had never told anybody. And eventually it got to the point where going to church literally made me physically ill, as in nauseous. I would pull into the parking lot of the church and feel like I was going to vomit. I was telling my husband, Matt, I cannot go in here today. I cannot go in here. And when we finally made the decision to leave the church, my husband kept saying, Tracy, are you sure? Are you sure? Because remember, my grandfather's the pastor, right? And so my family, they're all involved in all the leadership. And he said, you know what your family's going to do, right? Are you ready for this? And I said, I cannot go back in there again. I felt like I was crazy, as was mentioned by Jeremiah. You feel like you're the problem. And I truly felt like I was the problem. I felt firmly that God did not love me, could not love me. I was not lovable. And would have walked out those doors and never, ever, ever went to church again. I would have been happily okay with that, except for the fact that at that point we had 2 boys. And the thing I had wanted most in my life was for God to love me, right? I'd been trying for years, going to the altar over and over and over again, every revival, every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, trying to pray all of this confusion out of me and tried to suppress all these feelings from all these secrets that I was hiding. And nothing was changing. It was a pressure on my chest that was getting heavier and heavier and heavier. I could not breathe. And I knew, he doesn't love me. There's no way. I'm too much of a mess. But maybe there's a way he could love my children. The thing I wanted most in the world was God's love for me. And so it seemed like if I could have it for them, that would be really good, right? So we went to another church. Now, I don't know what y'all churches are like, but I was raised, the Conservative Holiness Movement, there's a spectrum, okay? And you got the spectrum on this end of the people who are like, the women wear dresses almost to the floor, and you got the pantyhose, and you've got, the pulled hair straight back in a bun, and just, really, really strict. And you've got the people over here who will allow you to wear short sleeves. And they were worldly. These people preached about these people, but they still were Conservative Holiness Movement. They still followed a lot of the standards. And so we actually went from this to a middle of the road church. I was raised down here in this end of the spectrum. We went here to the middle of the road. And my mother, who lived across the street from me, left a note in my mailbox that said I was going to burn in hell. My children were going to burn in hell. And that their blood was going to be on my hands. I hadn't even left the Conservative Holiness Movement completely. I had just moved from here to here. And that is the message that I got. Natalie mentioned the open-toed shoes just a little bit earlier, and I was taught that. And y'all listen, I was 21 years old when I bought my first pair of sandals. I remember every detail of those shoes, and when I tell people that, they think I'm crazy. They're like, what in the world? You were 21 before you owned a pair of sandals, and you remember exactly what they looked like? But it was a big deal to me because I had been told my whole life you couldn't do that kind of thing. And so here I am. We'd moved from here to here. We're in a different church. For the sake of my children, I firmly believe God does not love me. Keeping all these secrets. Married because I needed to get out. And we were falling apart because of all of my secrets. Again, firmly believe God did not love me. Definitely did not see him as someone who was trustworthy at all. And right there in the middle of all that, we were falling apart. My husband was done. I had OCD bad, y'all, like really, really bad. There had been so many things in my life that had been outside of my control. There was one thing I could control, and it was how clean my house was. And I was a fanatic about it. My husband, y'all, I mop my floors every single day on my hands and knees, every single day, at least twice. And my husband would be eating, and I would be running one of those little handheld vacuum cleaners beside his chair, get the crumbs up. I was like I mean, everything had to be clean. But it was all a symptom of me covering all of these secrets, so much that was out of control. But I sure could control what my floors looked like, right? There was one thing I could control, and I did. But I was making my husband crazy with my crazy. And he was done. He was done. And if y'all were raised like I was, like, you don't talk about divorce. You marry until you die. It doesn't matter what that person's doing. If they're beating you, whatever, you marry till you die. So when my husband actually said he wanted to divorce me, I knew he was serious, because we had been raised that you don't even say that word. He actually moved out for a little bit. He was in a hotel. I was at home. And the church that we had went to, this little middle of the road church, the pastor's wife saw something in me. I don't even know what, but she loved me so good, y'all. She loved me exactly how I needed to be how I needed to be loved. And she would do the sweetest things. She would write me, we lived in the same town, okay? She'd write me letters, and I would go out and get in mailbox full of letters from her. She just lived down the road from me. But she was so precious and loved me. And for the first time in my life, I said some things out loud that I had never said before. And her response was just to love me. And that opened up a door in my mind, because I thought if she could know everything there was to know about me and still love me, that maybe God could do the same. It totally shifted my thinking. But we were in this marriage crisis, and this is the letter that she sent to me, the actual letter. I'm going to read just a little bit of it, and I'm probably going to cry when I do, because I just do every time I read this. But there were things in here that were foundational for me, that put me on a right road with Jesus Christ. Everything about my marriage falling apart actually set me into place for everything that was going to happen in my future. And this is what she said to me. Tracy, all of us had crisis points when we were just married. What was important was how we reacted to the crisis. Did I learn what was true? Many of us had unrealistic expectations of what our mate would be. Now that I look back, I realize I wanted my husband to be everything to me. I wanted him to be a father who could always love and nurture me, because I didn't have a father. I wanted him to read my mind and my every need without me telling him anything. I guess I wanted him to be God to me in human form. And that was an impossible task for any man. As my relationship with God grew and I learned to trust him, right here, y'all, right here, and find my emptiness and my emotional needs met and healed in him, I was able to free my husband from all the expectations required of him, and I was able to allow him to just be my husband. I began to study and learn from others people's knowledge, and found out that man has needs that are important to me, and husbands and wives are to give to each other. Men and women are totally opposite. We will not understand our men by figuring out what we would think or feel. We must find out on purpose how they think and feel. It's a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. Honesty and vulnerability are your friends. I'm telling you from experience that when we obey God's guidance and principles, there are good results. Honesty and vulnerability produce a growing emotional intimacy between the two of you that is deeply satisfying. There is a healing process for the emotional wounds of your past. We do have to recognize the wounds, but that's not all. We can feel them and bring them to Christ for healing. We can forgive those who were unable to meet our needs, and we can find our needs met in Christ. The wounds can become healed scars and not running sores. Tracy, commit to the person of Jesus Christ. He can be trusted. That went against every single thing that I felt that he could be trusted. Y'all remember the analogy that I shared at the beginning of people drowning? We don't recognize that they're drowning. What happens when we do recognize that and we go to help them? Often, people who go to help drowning people end up almost drowning themselves because the person who is drowning actually fights against the help. The very thing that is going to save them, they fight against. And that is the situation we're put in when we have been trained in our mind to think a certain way, and that way isn't the truth. But everything within us tells us that it is, right? And so you have the truth right here coming at you, trying its best to save you. And you're fighting, and you're fighting, and you're fighting against it. Sometimes we just need to be still and let God be God. At the same time that Kathy was talking to me, shared me letters in my mailbox, that preacher was talking to my husband, Matt. And he said something that changed our whole situation. He said, Matt, you know you're doing exactly what she expects you to do, right? Her history has taught her that men will always hurt her. And she's just waiting for you to hurt her. She is expecting this from you. What you're doing right now, she's been expecting. And then he said the thing that changed everything. He told my husband, you need to do the unexpected thing. Something about those words shifted something in Matt's mind, and he determined he was going to do the unexpected thing. He came home. We started talking. We had to dig deep. But I made some decisions based on this letter. Commit to the person of Jesus Christ. He can be trusted. That was such a foundational thing for me. It was the very beginning of a rebuilding of my faith. It was the very beginning of a rebuilding of my marriage. And nothing about this is easy, right? But it's worth it. It's worth it. I'll tell you, sometimes when you're in the middle of something, and you're working so hard to figure out what to do and what is true and what is real, you're fighting to fix a marriage, you're fighting to, if you're just fighting, it's exhausting. We were just talking about that at our table during our discussion time. It's exhausting to figure out what is really true. What does the Bible really say? It's so difficult to navigate through all of these things. And we had to do all of these things about what we believed. We had to do this about our marriage. We were at ground level, y'all, ground zero, and we were building up from there. And it is exhausting. And you can feel like in the middle of it, I'm just going to throw up my hands and quit right here because I cannot do this anymore. I had this moment, oh my goodness, probably 6 months ago now. We have something in our house called family dinner night. Every single Monday night, everybody comes home and we do a big Southern dinner. And even my boys who don't live at home anymore, they come to family dinner night on one day. If somebody misses family dinner night, it's a big deal, okay? And we were eating, and my oldest son, Austin, who's sitting right back there, he's the one who's been my right hand for me. Y'all listen, he's getting married in just like 2 weeks, and I'm finally getting a daughter. After all these years of 5 boys, I'm finally getting a daughter. Yes, hallelujah. We can all clap for that. And so we're sitting at dinner, and he had Eva, his beautiful, beautiful fiance, with him, and we're all sitting here eating this good food. And I had got up. We were sitting on my back porch, y'all, which is like my favorite place in the whole world. It's the most, I love my back porch. And so we're sitting there, my favorite place in the world, with my favorite people. We're eating good food and we're laughing. And I got up to get something and walked into the kitchen. And I came back out and I just looked at him for just a minute. Imagine if Matt and I would have made different choices back there. This This letter is dated February 8, 2000. February 8, 2000. Different decisions right there would mean 3 of my boys wouldn't exist. They wouldn't be in this world. Breathing air right now, somewhere in Florida. Doing good, I hope, in the name of Jesus. They are boys, but they wouldn't even exist. We would know Eva. We would have never moved to Florida for anything to do with ministry. We wouldn't have been in ministry because we wouldn't have been together, okay? I wouldn't be standing here right now on this platform having this discussion with you if we would have made different choices right then. And I stood there for just a minute and looked at those 5 boys, my sweet girl I'm finally getting, my husband, good food, favorite place, favorite people. And I thought, this was worth it. This is what I was fighting for back in the middle of all of that. This is exhausting. I don't want to keep searching for the truth. I don't want to keep digging out into why I have OCD. I don't want to do the hard work of hope. I just want to give up. I just want to tell you people, you've got to hang in there if that's where you're at right now. You've got to hang in here right now. Just 2000, this letter was written. 2023. 23 years down the road. If you do the work right now, dig into what the Bible really says. Dig down into the marriage issues. Dig down into the issues that you have from church because you were abused there by people who told you that you can't wear short sleeves, but yet they're going to do you behind closed doors. Dig down into all that awful stuff. As difficult and as painful as it is, because 23 years now, you're going to have a back porch moment. You're going to look around and you're going to say it was worth it. It was worth it. We spend an awful lot of time talking about how we need to love God. What can I do to love Him and to serve Him and to just, I've got to please Him, right? There's all these rules and I got to get all this right. What can I do right to make sure that God loves me? What can I do? This isn't religion, y'all. This is a relationship. And in a relationship, it's a two-way street, right? You're trying and trying and trying and trying to love Him. And maybe you just need to be still for just a minute and let Him love you. Let Him love you. You can ask me anything later about any of the difficult stuff. Oh, let me tell you real quick. We moved to Florida for a job for my husband, and we were in a little middle-of-the-road church down there, and a new preacher came in, and they started doing some things that reminded me of this first church back here in the leadership, and I thought, oh, no, I've been here before. I recognize this. This isn't good. And that was the time when we totally broke away from that completely. Walked away. And you guys have done it, you know, you're losing everything. All your friends. It's a very isolated thing because you can't, entertainment is so controlled. You can't do a lot of things. And so your entertainment is your interaction with your friends, right? Everything that you're doing is within a church circle. You know, I'm going to this church picnic. I'm going to this church. It's your whole world. And when you walk away, your family and friends, that's hard stuff, y'all. Again, throw that into everything that I was talking about before. It's worth it. It's exhausting to work through those difficult relationships that are changed. It's different now. I can promise you, you're going to have a back porch moment. You're going to be so glad that you did the work. That's my story. You can ask me any questions later about any of the middle in-between stuff. I know there's a whole lot of stuff that you can't say in 25 minutes. So I'm an open book. You can talk to me about anything that has to do with leaving church and all that kind of stuff, and marriage issues and the whole 9 yards. I'll talk. Okay?